Good day to all of you and welcome to my video class. The topic that we are going to discuss today is about power and accountability. And in this lesson, we are going to discuss the following. First, the nature and dimension of power. Second, power, legitimacy, and the government. Third, power and governance. Fourth, power and citizenship. And the last but not the least, responsibility and accountability. Let us now move on to the discussion of the nature and dimension of power. Power is generally defined as the ability of a person to carry out his or her will. In politics, power refers to the ability to exercise control or impose restrictions over individuals, as well as compel other people to do certain tasks. Authority is the right to exercise power in society. Social psychologists John Prince and Bertram Raben view power as based on the perception and understanding of the various participants in society. In the late 1950s, John R. P. Prince and Bertram Raben in 1959 analyzed the complexities of power and determined that there were 5 dynamics or bases of power. And they are referent, expert, legitimate, reward, and coercive powers. They defined power as the primary source in achieving results or compliance from another individual. Prince and Raben defined social power as the potential for influence, a change in the belief, attitude, or behavior of someone who is the target of influence. As we know, leadership and power are closely linked. This model shows how the different forms of power affect one's leadership and success. Coercive power is based on person's ability to compel other people through threats, punishment, and force. The definition of coercive is something related to the act of convincing someone through threats, force, or without regard to what they want to do. When your boyfriend or girlfriend says he or she is going to break up with you if you don't buy him or her an expensive gift, this is an example of coercive behavior. Coercive power is conveyed through fear of losing one's job, being demoted, receiving a poor performance review, having prime projects taken away, etc. This power is obtained through threatening others. For example, the vice president of sales who threatens sales folks to meet their goals or get replaced. Reward power is based on the ability to give rewards and punishment. By definition, reward means a person can compensate another financially or otherwise for complying with his or her demands. A parent has reward power over his children. Reward power is defined as the use of rewards to get an employee to follow an instruction or order, with power coming from one's ability to withhold the reward for non-compliance. This power is in use, for example, when an employee is promised a day off in lieu of working a weekend to meet a tight deadline. Reward power is also the power of a manager to confer rewards on employees to influence their behavior. Rewards can be either tangible, like a monetary bonus, or intangible, like employee recognition. Next is expert power, relies on the knowledge and skills of the individual. Expert power is the perception that a certain person has an elevated level of knowledge or a specific skills set those others in an organization don't have. For example, the marketing director at your company may have risen to their position because of their knowledge in the field of marketing. Another kind of power is the legitimate power, which is based on person's position, role, and duties in a group. Legitimate power also means the authority granted to someone stemming from a position in a group or organization. Legitimate power stems from an authority's legitimate right to require and demand compliance. Legitimate power stems from a leader's formal authority over activities. Legitimate power is also a power that comes from one's organizational role or position. For example, a boss can assign projects. A policeman can arrest a citizen, and a teacher assign grades. And the last kind of power, according to French and Bertram, is the referent power, which is based on an individual's personality and ability to attract followers. Referent power is a form of reverence gained by a leader who has strong interpersonal relationship skills. Referent power as an aspect of personal power becomes particularly important as organizational leadership becomes increasingly about collaboration and influence and less about command and control. From the entertainment world, popular celebrities is an example of someone with referent power. Having million Twitter followers, these people respect them and want to know what they is up to. Some aspire to be like them. In this respect, they have referent power over their followers. Max Weber, a German sociologist and philosopher, proposed a classification of power based on different types of authority. Weber defined power as the chance that an individual in a social relationship can achieve his or her own will, even against the resistance of others. To make this definition more useful in the study of history and society, Weber suggests domination as an alternative or more carefully defined concept. According to Max Weber, there are three types of power based on authority. And the first one is the charismatic authority, which is based on the personal qualities of the individual who wields power. Charismatic authority is a concept of leadership developed by the German sociologist Max Weber. It involves a type of organization or a type of leadership in which authority derives from the charisma of the leader. This stands in contrast to two other types of authority, which is the legal authority and the traditional authority. Some examples of famous charismatic leaders include Winston Churchill, Martin Luther King Jr., Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, and Margaret Thatcher. Charismatic leaders are generally those people who possess certain qualities that inspire people and encourage devotion to a certain cause. Another one is traditional authority, which is rooted in traditional values and existing social ties and institutions. Traditional authority, also known as traditional domination, is a form of leadership in which the authority of an organization or a ruling regime is largely tied to tradition or custom. The main reason for the given situation is that it has always been that way. Traditional authority is generally associated with monarchies or tribal systems. For example, historically, kings derived their authority from tradition. They gained power through a line of succession. They became kings because their fathers before them had been kings, not because of any special ability or popularity. Then we have the legal rational authority, which is based on system of laws and regulations and an established bureaucracy. Rational legal authority, according to Weber, is the power made legitimate by laws, written rules, and regulations, is termed rational legal authority. In this type of authority, power is vested in a particular rational system or ideology and not necessarily in the person who implements the specifics of that doctrine. Rational legal authority is the basis of modern democracies. Examples of this type of authority is that officials elected by voters, rules that are the constitution, or policies that are written in a formal document. Rational legal authority is built on the structure of bureaucracy. Influence refers to the ability to entice or convince through persuasion and other non-coercive means. Power also plays an important role in leadership. Leaders exercise various forms of power to guide people in an organization and lead them in the conduct of various tasks. Influence is defined as the effect of a person or thing. An example of influence is for a high school student to complete all his assignments on time, thereby making his little brother want to do the same. To have an influence on something or change a news report that influenced the outcome of the election. Now let's move on to the topic of power, legitimacy, and the government. Political power is understood to refer to sovereignty, which is the power of the government to perform its function and conduct its affairs without interference from outside forces. Sovereignty also refers to the authority to exercise control over a group or society. Sovereignty is a political concept that refers to dominant power or supreme authority. In a monarchy, supreme power resides in the sovereign or king. The sovereign is the one who exercises power without limitation. As for international law, sovereignty is a government which has complete authority over the operations in a geographical territory or state. Thus, it can be concluded that sovereignty is important because it is the right of the people to elect their government, its laws, and etc. In ancient times, rulers and leaders were believed to possess sovereignty and could therefore command respect and obedience of their subjects. Sovereignty is the right of a government to have complete control over its area. The idea that this right comes from doing good things for the people under control of the government is as old as ancient Greece, if not older. The Age of Enlightenment, however, redefined sovereignty in the context of the social contract. Social philosophers of the Enlightenment advanced the idea that sovereignty resides in the individuals that compose society. This became the basis for the democratic ideal of a government of the people. by the people, and for the people. In moral and political philosophy, the social contract is a theory or model that originated during the Age of Enlightenment and usually concerns the legitimacy of the authority of the state over the individual. Thomas Hobbes is famous for his early and elaborate development of what has come to be known as social contract theory, the method of justifying political principles or arrangement by appeal to the agreement that would be made among suitably situated rational free and equal persons. Individuals in a state of nature were apolitical and asocial. This state of nature is followed by the social contract. The social contract was seen as an occurrence during which individuals came together and ceded some of their individual rights so that others would cede theirs. Social contracts can be explicit, such as laws, or implicit, such as raising one's hand in class to speak. The Philippine Constitution is often cited as an explicit example of part of the Philippines' social contract, so it set out what the government can and cannot do. Legitimacy is the acceptance or recognition of the right to exercise power. Legitimacy is generally based on existing laws, customs, and traditions that are prevalent in a certain society. It is also based on the exercise of a certain activities that are recognized to lend legitimacy to a government or a group of leaders. Examples of these are elections or the formulation of a constitution or organic laws. Therefore, it may be possible for a political leader to exercise authority in a government without legitimacy. The greatest problems of legitimacy are faced by bodies with no tradition, no charisma, no record of success, and not even a vestige of democratic accountability. Other forms of government, meanwhile, have their own means of determining who exercise sovereignty. Traditional monarchical states considered the monarch as the legitimate ruler and head of government, who exercised most powers of government. Monarchy is a political system based upon the undivided sovereignty or rule of a single person. The term applies to states in which supreme authority is vested in the monarch, an individual ruler who functions as the head of the state and who achieves his or her position through heredity. Here are the present-day countries where monarchs still maintain absolute power are Brunei, Eswatini, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Vatican City, and the individual emirates composing the United Arab Emirates, which itself is a federation or such monarchies, known as a federal monarchy. Constitutional monarchies, on the other hand, set limits on the authority of the monarch. Constitutional monarchy is a system of government in which monarch shares power with a constitutionally organized government. The monarch may be the de facto head of state or a purely ceremonial leader. The Constitution allocates the rest of the government's power to the legislature and judiciary. Today, constitutional monarchies are mostly associated with Western European countries such as the United Kingdom, Netherlands, Belgium, Norway, Denmark, Spain, Luxembourg, Monaco, Liechtenstein, and Sweden, However, the two most populous constitutional monarchies in the world are in Asia. It is Japan and Thailand. Modern constitutional monarchies recognize the monarch as a legitimate ruler, but his or her role is limited to being a head of state or a symbolic representative of the nation, with little or no actual power in the government. The power of the government resides in the parliament, which is headed by the Prime Minister. Okay, that's all for now, and we will continue the three remaining topics on our next video lesson. Thank you very much for listening and see you on our next video lesson. Goodbye.